Thanks, everyone, for coming around tonight. I know our time is very valuable, very important, and that is why I felt the need. Just like I was discussing with my team before now, this week we are supposed to present probably a different speaker, a different topic altogether. But having received like about 4 different calls in the last 2 weeks of members that need guidance on interviews. I felt it's important to have this session instead of going through the session on individual basis with members. If we're able to have this session, I think that will be more impactful and also help others as well to understand some of my thought process in terms of how to go about achieving the best from interviews. As Nelson mentioned, my name is Osita. I started up my career back in Nigeria working with an IT company called First Logic. Some of you might know First Logic at Ikeja, Lagos. From First Logic, I later moved into banking. I worked in bank, and from there I also moved into consulting, where I also work with some consulting firms, including IBM, implementing ERPs, SAP for different clients across different geographies. In Canada, from IBM, I later moved into oil and gas, where I was the head of ICT of an oil and gas company in Port Harcourt. What I did there was, till today, I still get a lot of calls in respect to the phenomenal work that we did in that company, because the organization was all manual, paper-based. But within the years that I was there, I was able to revolutionize how they use they use their systems and also their processes. SAP was deployed across all the different subsidiaries, both the mining, agriculture, real estate, production, all the other subsidiaries. So it's a great thing of honor. In Canada, I came in with my family in Canada a few years ago and worked with a company in North York as a project delivery manager. For me, that wasn't what I wanted to do, but just like every strategy, most time you want to have a foot in the door. So I applied and I got that opportunity, and I was like, okay, let me start with that. But even before that, I was discussing with someone. That was the first time that I will begin to work on CV, to say, hey, I want to apply for a job. All my career back in Nigeria, from the first job at First Logic to the banking to other companies I've worked, has all been referrals or headhunter. Probably someone just checked on LinkedIn and from there gave me a call and we start conversation. I have never had a reason to begin to use CV and start going around that I'm applying for a job. But in Canada, one have to do that. Wherever you are back home, stays back home. Nobody knows you here. So you have to start more like from the scratch, which is the baby step we all talk about. So in the company, I worked for a year plus, and after that, I moved into the company where I'm working right now as the SAP technology manager, with responsibility across the different spectrum of business in the organization, in terms of strategy, implementation of SAP, and also sustainment of the SAP architecture and framework within the organization. So in a nutshell, that is me. Let me dive straight into the topic that I really want to share with us today. As a candidate, I've been part of. I've had a fair share of interviews. That after interviews, I'll be expecting to get the offer letter, but at the end of the day, nothing happened. Most times, I'll reach out to the recruiter to understand what is going on. I will get some feedback. Some of the feedback will not be great. At times, you don't even get any feedback from the recruiters. So Right now, myself, as a hiring manager in my company, I've found myself in different panels. You know, where different department wants to wants to employ people that will invite me to be part of the panel. In my department as well, I recruit from time to time, and I will have to interview candidates as well. So what I want to share with us tonight is more like um, it's going to be more like some of the general things that we're used to in terms of interview. But at the same time, there are some striking points that I want to mention, which I have shared with some of the members, which I also believe that if we are able to adopt, it's gonna be something that will stand you out from the crowd. Because as a candidate, you are coming into an interview. You are not the only one. There are several other persons that have applied. Now, what can you do to create a difference? That's the question I always ask people. What can you do to create a difference? My EVP, like some of the interview we had last month, after the interview, he felt, oh, the candidates are not great. Let's get more candidates. For him, he just, if he's able to identify a candidate right away, he will say, yeah, okay, this is the candidate I'm looking for. But after a day or two, he forgets completely. People are busy, especially in this environment. So what can you do that will create that indelible mark in the heart of the hiring manager? So that even after a day or 2 or 3 days or thereabouts, if, for example, they have interviewed a set of people, they are not able to pick someone. Second set of people, they were not able to pick someone. Third set, at the end of the day, decision might be made to say, okay, let's go back to the first set of people. There's a guy there that did pretty well. How would they remember that you did pretty well? At times, they don't even write. They don't even take notes. So you need to create something that will stand you out so that someone can reference and say, hey, you know that guy that did this? You know that guy that did that? So that is a way to make sure that you remain in the mind of the hiring managers, even after a couple of days. Let's jump into the slide right away. Okay, can you all see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. So briefly, what we're going to be going through in terms of the content, we'll be looking at what is an interview. Then I've also kind of break this this session tonight like into 3 equal buckets: before the interview, during the interview, then after the interview. My emphasis is going to be more on during the interview, and I'll be talking about 3 key areas. Tell me about yourself, the story, STAR method, and the TESI principle. That is where the major focus is going to be. But let's keep moving. So before the interviews, know your interviewers. What I tell people is this: you want to go for an interview. The people that you're going to meet, do you know them? If you don't, ask the recruiter. Most recruiters will share that information with you. Hey, you're going to be interviewing with so person. This person, I mean the name, the title of the person, and all those information. If you don't have it, always try as much as possible to ask for that information. Don't feel shy to say, hey, I don't know the interviewer, and you just feel that everything is all good. No, ask, and they will give you the details of the person that you are going to be interviewing with. When you get that information, what I want you to do, or which I have applied and I've also coached people, is look for those people on LinkedIn. Check those people to know who they are. If you have a proper understanding of the person that you're going to be interviewing, that will help you a great deal. Because part of what you're going to be looking at on LinkedIn is the person's background. Is this person a technical person? Is it a people person? Is it an HR person? The background and the title of the person will help you to understand possibly the kind of questions you're going to expect from that person. And that will help you to prepare yourself. So it's very important. Research the company. Great. If you have friends, give them a call, get information about the company. That's another great one. Understand the need for the position. Every job that you see out there, there's a need. The company needs a business analyst to do what? What is the need in that company at that moment? There is a problem that needs to be solved. And that is why they are looking for a business analyst. Can you confirm what the problem is? If you understand what the problem is, it's going to help you a great deal. Craft out winning stories that are in line with the job description and also what the issues are. You need to craft it out, practice it, and be able to go in to do justice to the interview. Then during the interview, I'm going to talk about those three. Then the last one, send a thank you message and also for feedback. All right, so this is a young man, a member of NIPCA. I don't know if he's a member, but he looks like a member of NIPCA. Is looking up for an interview, and you can see the guy properly dressed. That is the number one tip. I know everybody, at times I've got some people say, hey, is it compulsory to put on tie? It's not compulsory, but I advise you do that. If you have a tie, if you don't have one, just buy one. Dress properly, professionally. Look your best, because that is the very first opportunity you've got. First impression matters. Now, I've kind of given a little background. Let's now quickly talk about what is an interview. So when you spread the word interview, you get two words, inter and view. It's roughly translated to between view or seeing each other. This means that both parties involved in an interview get to know about one another. Please pay attention to the words that I underline. Get to know. It's not about the interviewers. It's also about you. You need to know the people that are interviewing you. They also want to know you. Okay? And one of the things that employers or hiring managers thinks about, one, is he motivated? When you come into that interview session, you are talking and all that. Part of what the hiring managers, interviewers are looking at is to see if you're motivated or not. I've seen situations where someone who was great, who was good in the interview, but he was not given the offer. Why? Because we felt the guy was not motivated. We felt the guy is going to come in and after a couple of months, he's going to leave the job. Most Canadian companies want someone that will come in and spend 20 years in the company, if possible, retire in the company. So that part of motivation must be shown through your body language. You need to be excited about the interview. Is he a good fit? That's another very good question. At that point, they're going to be looking at the team you're going to be working with, looking at your styles, your communication, your gestures, your personality. Are you going to fit? Those are questions in the mind of hiring managers. Can he do the work? That is now another question as well. And that is based on the question they're going to be asking you. They will be able to assess if you're able to do the work or not. Okay? An interview can be defined as a gentle conversation between two people or more, where questions are asked to a person to get the required responses or answers. Required. So it's not just about asking a question. You need to understand the mind. Please understand the mind behind every question. You come into an interview boardroom, and the first question thrown at you by the hiring manager, hi, Nelson, how are you today? How was commute to our office? Probably you had a bad day, there was traffic, or there was some issues. You will now start saying, hey, there was traffic, or, you don't need to mention that, even if there was traffic. How was commute to our office? That sounds like a simple question, but there's more to it. What the hiring manager at that point is trying to establish is if you eventually come in as an employee in the company, will you be giving excuses that you are not able to come to work because of traffic? Are you going to be giving excuses, hey, that distance from your home to the work and all those kind of things? He wants to know. But to you, you are thinking that, hey, this guy is just concerned. He's just asking to know how was the traffic. Most hiring managers and recruiters pay attention to where you live. If, for example, the job is in Mississauga and you are living in Brampton, that is a plus for you because of the proximity. If the job is in Mississauga and you are living somewhere in Waterloo or somewhere in Kitchener, that's a problem. The hiring manager will now be thinking about distance. So, how was commute? You need to be careful on what you say. He's laughing, he's smiling, he's taking notes mentally without you knowing that. Interview tips. I'm not going to waste time on this. This is more like some tips which I kind of crafted. But again, you can see 1001 tips, no doubt. But these ones are the ones that most times do stand out, which I think if we're able to pay attention to these tips as well, they are going to help us. First thing that I say, pray, of course. No matter whatever you do, you have to commit everything to God. He's the one eventually that will decide if you're going to get it or not. I've seen situations where interview, a candidate didn't do so well, but at the end of the day, you get the offer. It happens. Anything can happen. Practice, practice, practice. You have to practice, no doubt about it. Study and understand your resume is very important. Most hiring managers don't go through resumes, like going through line by line. Most times, resumes will, it's always funny that most time when we have interview, like in my company, HR might just forward some interview of candidates to me. If the candidate are the candidate I want to recruit in my department, of course, I'll go through and be able to shortlist and say, hey, invite these 2 or 3 persons for interview. But if it's for another department, I won't even open it. And that is what most people do until the very day of the interview. When the interview day reaches, probably 10, 15 minutes to the interview, that is when I will now open the document, send it to the printer, pick a copy, and start moving to the boardroom. Some hiring managers are also very busy. They don't go through all this. It is right there during the interview that some of them will start asking questions about your resume. You need to understand the chronological order, the way you set it out, so that when questions are asked, you're able to communicate. The last thing you want to see is you are not able to say things based on what you've got in your resume. Another one is the job description, very important. Dress professional, I've talked about that. Arrive 15 minutes early at least. Very, very important. Come in with a notepad. That is something I have practically done in all my interviews, right from Nigeria to Canada. I go with a notepad and a pen. Once the session starts, the interview session starts, I use my pen and I'm listening. As I'm listening, I'll be making some notes. Even if there's no striking point that I want to note down, I would just scribble some things on the paper. It shows seriousness. It shows that you are listening. It shows that you are being attentive. It's very important. As a hiring manager, when I see a candidate put up those kind of attitudes, I look at the person as someone that is serious, someone that is committed, someone that is willing and motivated. Okay, so it's important. Fair handshake and pleasant smiles. Make eye contact. Give off positive energy with body language. Stay calm. Answer questions methodically. Then ask at least 2 questions at the last. That's after the interview that you need to ask questions. Craft 2 very great questions that you're going to ask. Don't start asking questions about training if you'll be trained on the job. Hiring managers don't want to hear that. I'm employing you to come and solve a problem. It's not for me to train you. Yes, there might be training, but that is not the opportunity or the time for you to start asking if there is going to be training. I've seen lots of different kind of questions that people ask. You marvel, these people, how do they even prepare? Do they really prepare at all before coming for interviews? Now, let's go into the 3 buckets before the interview strategy. I've talked about know your interviewers. And there, what I talked about is check out the interviewers on LinkedIn. Understand their background. That will help you to understand the people that you're going to be meeting. If, for example, I research the interviewers and I discover that these are technical guys, or more, I will have to prepare on technical stuff. I might not necessarily be expecting questions like all the kind of behavioral questions. Those behavioral questions are good, but most times you see those kind of questions being asked by recruiters, HR people, and all that. For a core technical position, you need to prepare technically, because that's what the hiring manager want to see. You want to see how sound you are, how technical inclined you are. So you need to check out the interviewers. Most time, personally, I don't use my LinkedIn to check out the interviewers, because I discovered that, again, in LinkedIn, we all know that when you check somebody's profile, the person is going to get like a message that so person have checked their profile. Most time, I don't want to do that. I don't want the interviewers to know that I've checked their profile. I can simply speak to a friend and give him the details. He will just check the profile, save it in PDF copy, and send to me. So I can just go through the profile on PDF instead of just going to LinkedIn with my LinkedIn account, checking out the profiles of my interviewers. I don't want to do that. Research the company, very important. If you are going for a position, say for example, they need an ERP business analyst. Part of what you'll be asking yourself is, what kind of ERP do they use in the company? Do they use SAP? Do they use Microsoft Dynamics? Do they use Epicor? What is the ERP? Those things are very key. Because if you understand the ERP they use, that will help you to craft your story. It will help you to craft your story, so that when you tell your story during the interview, it resonates with the hiring managers. It resonates with the interviewers. Understand the need for the position. I've mentioned that before. It's very important. It's very, very important. My present job, let me use that as an example. When I applied for this position, part of what I did was to speak to the recruiter that was in charge, that the company had contracted to get a resource. I asked him, what is the problem that this company is trying to solve? What really are their issues? And the guy told me that he didn't know much, but he's going to find out for me. Feel free to ask recruiters questions. They will dig and get information for you. The recruiter went and was able to understand from the hiring manager what the issues are. I got to understand that they have SAP implemented for the past 6 years. I got to understand that they are looking for someone that will be able to manage a team of SAP analysts. I got to understand the fact that the SAP analyst that they have got requires leadership. They are a team of people that at times they can't even take decisions on how to interface with other departments, get what the departments need, come down, analyze those things, and possibly implement. They needed someone that will be able to manage the vendor that they have got. They have got a vendor that they felt the vendor is not doing well. So the guy was able to list out all those things that the hiring manager mentioned to him. Remember, this information, and we are not part of the JD. They were not part of the job description. This is now like additional level of detail that the guy is giving to me. Based on this information, I was able to craft my story based on these details that I've got. Again, I've been able to manage team of SAP analysts before. I've worked in mining company before. I have had experience managing vendors before. I have had consulting background. So what I do is like mapping, okay? One-to-one mapping. Based on the issue the guy mentioned, I will look at my previous skill set. Which one aligns with what this company is looking for? By the time I finished with the alignment, I now went back and began to craft story around those experiences. By the time I met with the hiring manager, and when the guy asked questions and I began to explain things to the guy, I was hitting it in such a way that the guy was looking at me. What I was saying was resonating with him, because the problems that the company had were exactly what I was talking about. I gave him a story, how in my previous company, how I had to fire the vendor and bring in another SAP vendor. Why? Because I did that actually in the previous company, but I wouldn't have given this story if I didn't know that the vendor they have right now is giving them problem. The recruiter told me this. They are looking at a new vendor. They need someone that will be able to guide them. I crafted a story based on that. The guy didn't know when he started nodding his head. So it's important. When you understand the problems, when you understand the issues the company is having, it's going to help you to craft your story. It's going to help you to be able to tell stories that resonate with the recruiter, with the hiring managers. And that is the kind of thing that, as a hiring manager, I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone that will come and tell me, hey, you've got a problem, ABC. I have been able to solve ABC problem sometime before. This was how I solved it. That will give me some comfort. It means that when you come into my company, you will be able to deliver. It's very important. Craft out winning stories, just like I was trying to say. Winning stories must align to what the company is looking for. Very important. Now, during the interview, we've got tell me about yourself, which to me is always like the first question by default in most interview sessions. As a hiring manager, you want to break the ice. Most times, you just want to start by, hey, after having the small talk and all that. Next question is, okay, tell me about yourself. When you hear this question, 3 things are expected from you. We are going to talk about that in the next slide. Then you've got the story, which is the STAR method. You need to craft stories. You need to align stories with your past experience. When I was with XYZ, I did this. When I was very, very key and very powerful. When you're able to communicate that way, you are telling the hiring manager or the interviewers that, yes, you have got the experience. You have been able to face this problem before, and you were able to solve the problem. So it's not enough to just say, I did this, blah, blah, blah. No. Tie it to your previous experience. Tie it to your previous company is very, very powerful when you do that. Because the CV is in their hands. They're looking at the CV. They're looking at your resume. And when you're able to connect, when I was with this company, I did this. When I was with this company, I did this. It's powerful, my people. I want us to be able to craft stories around your past experiences. Then the TESI principle. We're going to also talk about that as well. Okay? So, tell me about yourself. When you hear tell me about yourself, 3 things are expected. Your educational background, your professional experience, and value proposition. It's not enough to just talk about, hey, my name is Osita Wajufo, blah, blah, blah. I've done this, blah, 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 blah. You stop there. In fact, there was a member that I counseled just 2 days ago. I said, okay, fine, you've got an interview the next day. Let's even do like a mock interview. And my first question to him was, okay, assuming this is the real life interview now, tell me about yourself. The guy spoke. In less than 1 minute, he stopped. And I asked him, are you done? He said, yes. In less than 1 minute. I was still expecting to say more. And he stopped in less than 1 minute. That is not the best way. This is most time the first question you get. You must be able to craft the best way to answer this question in such a way that it's going to be impactful. That first impression matters a lot. The first impression. I was sharing with my wife just a couple of hours before this session. I have had a candidate that I was interviewing. While the guy was talking, I was already feeling asleep. I was feeling asleep. I couldn't just, at some point I had to stand up from my seat, and I kept, just kept listening to him, but the guy was not communicating at all. He was not communicating. And there was no way I could tell him, okay, all right, no problem, we'll get back to you. I can't do that in less than 10, 15 minutes. That would sound rude, right? But I have to sit there at least for the next 45 minutes listening to the guy, but there was no connection. This is what happened to a lot of hiring managers. When you are not connecting, they will be there. Some will be looking at you, but their minds are not there. How do you get them to be present in the spirit as well as also in the physical with you? You need to impact on these 3 pillars. Now, when I say educational background, we are going to look at an example briefly, and professional experience and value proposition. So this is an example that I just put up quickly this evening when I came back. For example, you got a question that says, tell me about yourself. I can start off by saying, please permit me to tell you about myself in 3 buckets: my educational background, professional experience, and the values that I wish to bring on board at XYZ. You see the way I've broken this? Please permit me to tell you about myself in 3. One thing that recruiters like a lot is your ability to answer questions methodically. If you are able to tell me that you want to tell me about yourself in 3, what happens? My ear will be alert. I want to hear those 3 things. When you finish talking about my educational background, I will be itching to hear the next thing. When you're done, I want to hear the 3rd one. I have captured your attention. This is where, again, what I'm trying to say here is we all attend interviews. We all have some of us have gotten jobs and all that, but I'm sharing principles with you that can set you apart. When I tell you that, I want to tell you, for example, I say, hey, the major 2 reasons why we've got corruption in Nigeria are, what do you think will happen? I have captured your attention. You will want to hear what are the 2 things. That is a better way to communicate. It's a better way to craft your communication. Put them in buckets and dish them out methodically. When you do that, your interviewers will easily connect with you. They will flow with you. They will understand your flow. But if you don't put them in buckets, which is what I see at times from candidates, someone will just start talking. I've got experience in this, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, you might not be able to even understand what the guy, the value that the guy is able to bring to the table. Another good thing, while you talk about educational background, one of the interviews that I attended in the past, in fact, the first job that I got in Canada, I discovered that the hiring manager attended University of Toronto. And then I was also doing a program in University of Toronto. When I checked his LinkedIn before the interview, I discovered that. And because again, as human beings, always you are trying to find the common ground to connect with people. If you come into an interview session, you're also trying to see, how do I connect with the interviewers? What are the areas of interest? I tried to mention University of Toronto when I was introducing myself. And the guy picked that up and he was like, oh, wow, U of T. How's your program going? We started chatting. I was able to connect. After that initial chat, that kind of break the ice, we are now able to discuss. In fact, instead of interview, it became like a conversation. We are just conversing. That is where I saw it. So it's important. when you've got those kind of details, those kind of information, use them to your advantage. If you know that the hiring manager has attended York University, and you've also done a program in York University, mention that. You need to find a way to carefully get that mentioned during the conversation, or when you are being asked to talk about yourself. So looking at the framework that I put together, I can say, for instance, I'm a graduate of computer science and I have a master's in business administration with over 15 years of experience in ICT space. I have extensive experience in Microsoft Dynamics and SAP S/4HANA implementation, consulting, and support. I am an SAP certified technology professional, SAP certified process consultant, Oracle certified professional, blah, 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 blah. I'm an alumnus of University of Toronto, Rothman School of Management, School of Business, and Harvard Business School. Now, this part, it depends on what, the certification you've got. You need to also carefully put what is relevant. If you've got some certification that are not relevant to the job, there's no point mentioning it. You need to choose carefully. Mention the things that are relevant to the job, okay? Then after you talk about the educational background, then the next thing, you talk about professional experience. Most recently, as team lead of SAP Consulting with IBM, I led the technical team in 3 end-to-end ERP implementation of value or in excess of 25 million US dollars across multiple geographies, blah, 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 blah. Prior to that, okay? Now, in professional experience, what you're going to do there is pick at least 2 or 3 companies that you've worked before and talk about them. Talk about what you did in those companies. So you start with the most recent company. Then after that, you talk about prior to that, you talk about the previous company where you've worked. Then you now talk before that, you talk about the other company. If you can talk about 2 or 3, it's going to be impactful. You are not just talking. You are mentioning the company and you are mentioning what you've done in that company. It resonates. If you are saying that to the hiring manager, it connects. It means you're not just talking like every other candidate. You are being extraordinary. You are being different. And those are the kind of things that recruiters, hiring managers, and interviewers are looking forward to see during interview. Then lastly, value proposition. Most people forget this part. Tell me about yourself is not just talking about your education and experience. You must talk about your value. What value are you going to bring in this company? If I'm looking for an SAP business analyst that is going to help me with training, building documentations, training, and all those kind of things, you must be able to tie that in. Lastly, when you are telling me about yourself, that is value proposition. Having worked within the 3 strata of SAP knowledge areas, namely end user, super user, consultant roles, I believe that I'm well prepared to bring my experience on board in the provision of effective improvement initiatives. Strong SAP technical support to technical teams, functional teams, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you the value now. This value must align to the major problem that the company is trying to solve. At the initial, in less than 3 minutes, you have created a powerful impression of yourself. 3 minutes, you can do this. Talk about your educational background briefly, professional experience, value proposition. When you do this, you have been able to tell the interviewer about yourself in a methodical way, and you have communicated in such a way that it is impactful, and also it shows the hiring manager that this guy knows what he's talking about. It's not just about myself, but I'm also telling you that this is the value that I'm going to bring to this company. Why do they want to pay you $80,000, $100 and something thousand to come and work for them? There's a need. And if there's a need, you must identify that need and say, hey, I'm going to solve that problem. I know how to solve it. Craft it out within the 3 minutes that you've got that opportunity. Okay? Then let's move to the next key point that I want to mention during the interview stage, the STAR method. I know most of us are familiar with this. Most time you want to craft your stories. Always build your stories around the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. What was the problem? Task, what was your involvement? I've seen people that will be say, I mean, in the interview, what you'll be hearing is we. In the team, we did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. Great. My people, is very key, it's very important to show that you're a team player. You can work in a team. But it's most important to tell me what you did. What was your involvement? What was your task? Is very, very powerful. Because if I'm going to hire you, you are not coming to the company with your team. I want to know what you can do. So when you're talking about task, learn to use I. Occasionally you can mention we, but learn to use I. When I was with this company, you talk about the scenario, the issue, then I, what you did. Very, very key. Then after that, you talk about action. The actions, talk about the processes, the different actions you took. Then at the end of the day, the result. Situation, task, action, and result. Very important. Is this, you can say that this is kind of similar to tell me about yourself. You don't just talk. After talking, you stop. You must talk about results. In tell me about yourself, the result or the outcome is the value proposition. What I'm going to bring on board. So for STAR method, situation, task, action, and result. Very key. Let's look at an example briefly in STAR method. Tell me about a time when you experienced conflict on a team and how did you resolve it? Now you see, situation, task, action, and result. Situation. For instance, I was tasked with implementing a new project management system. This meant I had to coordinate the tasks and goals across several teams. Unfortunately, there was a long simmering conflict between two of the team leaders who were going to have to work closely on this project. This is the situation. Task. I started by creating the timeline, then figuring out when those two people were going to have to work together to accomplish joint tasks. You are communicating initiative. I, not we. I started by what I did. Okay? Initiative. You wanted to know, when will these two people be involved? Okay? You are doing this so that you will be able to make sure that there is less friction. And at the end, because again, the ultimate purpose of this, in this example I'm painting, is not to resolve the conflict between those two people. That's not your job. The job is for you to deliver on the project. So what initiative did you take to make sure that those conflicts do not impact on the project timelines? Action. I met with each of them individually to explain that they will be working together and ask how I could help things work smoothly. As a result of those meetings, I was asked to sit in on all of their project meetings as a neutral third party and provide feedback. And I was also copied on every written communication to ensure things were handled professionally and appropriately. Okay? Then results. What is the result? There were a few times when friction was a problem, but because I was involved from day one and acted as a neutral third party, we were able to finish the project on time and budget. This is just an example, but you can see the initiative. If you are the hiring manager and somebody is painting a scenario like this, you'll be able to say, yes, this guy have got a great initiative. Okay? So STAR method is important. Talk about situation, the task, action, then the result. Very important. Don't forget that. Use this to craft your stories, the different stories you're going to have before the interview. In your house, sit down, craft stories around this. Practice, practice, practice. During the interview, when questions comes up like that, you are able to pen those stories. Stories are powerful. When you say that, when you communicate stories, they resonate, especially with Canadians. Instead of just talking, pen stories, powerful stories that will resonate with them. Okay? Then the TESI principle. Now, this is a principle that I coined. Okay, you are not going to see this anywhere in any book, that talk about interview. This is something that I have seen that was impactful in my interview process as a candidate, and was also very impactful for some of the members that I have coached in the last couple of months. Testing principle involves a visual explanation of a concept or question. It can be deployed by probably sharing a personal experience, telling a story that relates to recent events. You can piggyback on a previous speaker's remark or question. My people, this is not difficult. Let me ask you a simple question. As a hiring manager, you are seated in the boardroom, interviewing a candidate, and during the conversation, the candidate stood up from his seat, walks up to the smart board or to the whiteboard, picks up the marker and illustrates something. It could just be a simple illustration, like input, process, output, like what I've got on the slide. Just a simple process. Just draw, square, put input there, draw a third one, process, another one, output. Just scribble something like that and start talking about it. How will you feel as a hiring manager? You've got a candidate that is able to express that boldness and confidence to stand up from a seat, go to the whiteboard and illustrate something. That is powerful. In my present job, I applied Tessie principle. When I was speaking with the hiring manager, and he was talking about sustainment of SAP system, I felt that, man, what I need to do is to illustrate things to this man. I stood up, walk up to because again, in most interview boardrooms or meeting rooms, you're going to have, in most times, you will see whiteboards, right? Whiteboards are always there most times. Use that opportunity if you can. And I believe, and I know you can. Most time, people are, because it's interview, you just want to sit down and listen. The interviewer will talk, ask questions, you answer, you ask, you answer, Don't make it ordinary, just like everyone else. Do something different. I stood up, walked up to the boardroom, to the whiteboard, drew something that looks like a server. Talk about 3 system landscape on SAP: development system, quality assurance, and production. The activities in development system, the change management initiatives that you now make sure you move everything to quality assurance. Once you are done, then you move to production system. Explaining to him about best practice in SAP 3 system landscape. The guy was there looking. Interview that was supposed to be for 1 hour lasted 90 minutes, 1.5 hours. The guy was there. After the interview, 90 minutes, he took me to his office and said, Osita, I have got 3 candidates for this position. With your presentation today, I'm very, very convinced that you are the candidate we are looking for. I'm not going to interview the other 2 candidates. Please, we are going to proceed so that you meet with the CFO, which is the final stage. Right there, the guy was able to speak with the CFO and they agreed. Come in next week, Tuesday, for the final interview. Next week, Tuesday, I came in, exuding the normal confidence. During the session, the hiring manager was there, the CFO was there, I was seated, we started. The CFO was asking questions, especially from TCO standpoint, that is total cost of ownership. As a manager of this department, how are you going to ensure that we minimize costs and all those kind of things? I answered. There was another one he asked. I was looking for the right time to stand up as well. He asked another one. I stood up. When they were talking about inventory process, the problem they are having on inventory process in the company, I used that opportunity, stood up, draw the SAP cycle count, inventory process, and showed them when I was in company XYZ. I mentioned one of the company. This was what I did. I broke it down in the whiteboard. The guy was there looking. At the end of the interview, the hiring manager took me again to his office and was asking me, when do I want to start? My people, I would tell you that it's God, but at the same time, the amount of effort and confidence that I brought on board, I made the interview to look completely different. If you're able to do that, is going to be very impactful. If you've got a whiteboard, you've got a marker, stand up. Just go to the board, scribble something, explain a concept while you are talking. Instead of sitting down, explain a concept. When you do that, that will be very, very impactful. The hiring manager, whoever is in that room, first of all, they will appreciate the fact that you've got the confidence to even stand up from your seat. They will, again, if it's a panel interview, some people might not even understand what you're talking about. For example, you've got HR person, technical person, and all, and you're explaining a technical concept. The HR person there will mark you good because already standing up, that is enough confidence. The technical people now, you're going to connect with them by what you're explaining. My people, this is the TESI principle. I have applied this. Last 2 weeks that I got a call that 2 people got an offer. One of the guys that got an offer used this principle. Because after the interview, he called me and told me, hey, this is what he did. And when he got the offer, he called me again, told me he has got an offer. It has worked for me. It has worked for some of the members that I coached. And I believe it's something that is powerful. Because as a manager in my company right now, if I've got a candidate that is able to stand up when we're having conversation or interview, go to the board, scribble something based on what we're talking about, and look at me in the face and communicate that to me, you've won my heart. Most times, that is the way I see it. So that is the principle. It's very powerful. I try as much as possible to concisely break it down. And I know that I'm trying as much as possible to wrap up in 1 hour so that I will create, we'll be able to use the remaining 30 minutes to ask all the necessary questions that we need to ask. Okay? So basically, these 3 areas are the key areas that I really want to talk about in this discussion tonight. Tell me about yourself. How do you put it in 3 buckets? Stories. How do you create and craft stories using the STAR method? And the third one, the TESI principle. Ability to engage your audience. Ability to engage the hiring manager, the recruiters. If you're able to do that, that will be powerful. All right. Then the last part that I just want to talk about is after the interview. Of course, you know that at the end of the interview, of course, they'll ask you, do you have any question for us? Yes. Ask at least 2 questions. Craft 2 powerful questions before the interview. When they ask you, say, yes, you've got a question. Ask those questions. It's very important. Don't say no. And that is not even the time for you to start asking them about salary. If they don't ask you about salary, don't bring it up. Okay? Don't sound as if don't be too forward. If they didn't talk about salary, don't bring it up. For me personally, I don't even want to even ask, when am I going to hear from you? I don't even ask that. If I have done well, you will reach out to me. So send a thank you message at the end of the day, and you can follow up, okay? If it's a recruiter that is actually involved in the recruitment, you can follow up with the recruiter to know how you did after the interview. Like most time we use some recruiting agencies in my company right now. After the interview, the recruiter will call me and say, hey, how did my candidate do in the interview? I will give the feedback right away. And the recruiter will pass that information across to the candidate. If the guy hasn't done well, I will say straight away to the recruiter, no, the guy didn't do well. We'll probably have to look for another candidate. When that information is communicated to you, then of course you know that, man, you didn't do well. Of course, they are not going to come back to you. You move on with your life. Start pursuing other interviews. So you need to ask. Ask the recruiter, how did you do? You will get those details, you'll get those information. That will help you to know if you are still in the race or not. My people, these are the few things I want to share with you tonight. And I believe that I've been able to communicate 1 thing or 2 to each and every one of us. So let's open the floor for questions.
Okay, Osita, it's 9 o'clock. We really do not have anybody send questions that they ask. I'm guessing this has been a very, very interactive session. But for the users out there right now, we have 60 participants. Osita just finished his lectures, and like between now and the next 30 minutes, if you have any questions that you want to ask Osita, I would have wanted to collate them, but given that, nobody really asked questions during when he was talking, it's also very interactive, given that he's an interviewer himself. You can ask him questions directly right now. And if you have any interview coming up and you feel like there's a way you want to approach it, this is the best time to ask Osita, and he's going to give you his candid advice on what he thinks. So we have the floor to at least 9:20 before we wrap up and close the session for 9:30.
Okay.
Hi, Osita. Thank you so much. This has been very impactful. At least you used a lot of personal experiences to get your message across, and yeah, I hope this would help us in our next interviews. I have a quick question, just to segue from your advice on asking questions and also sending a thank you note. Now, let's say you are interviewed by a hiring manager, and you don't have the contact for the hiring manager. You don't have an email. There's not been any communication between you. It's been only maybe the HR person in the company or the recruiter they have. Are you allowed to ask for an email, for the email address of the hiring manager who's hiring you after the interview, or do you just send a thank you note to the recruiter or the HR person who invited you for an interview?
Yeah, that's a great question. Excuse me. Sorry, what's the name?
Lutanda.
Okay, Lutanda. Okay, yeah. Excuse me. That's a great question. Now, there are different strategies, which again, you also mentioned when you were trying to ask the question as well. There are different strategies. One of the strategy is, for example, if I interview a candidate and the candidate appears to be one of the candidates I'm considering, I do give out my business card. Some hiring managers do that as well. At the end of the interview, they will send the business card to you. Perfect. If you get the business card, of course, the email is in the business card. You're able to send directly to the hiring manager. If you got into a recruiter, at the end of the day, the hiring manager didn't give you his contact, what you need to do, you can speak to the recruiter that you need to send a thank you message to the hiring manager. If the recruiter have the email, the recruiter is going to give that to you. If the recruiter does not want to give that to you, the recruiter might simply ask you to send the thank you note to him, that is to the recruiter, then the recruiter will now forward to the hiring manager, okay?
Okay.
Those are scenarios, yeah. So once you send to the recruiter will forward. Like the interview I had last week, I got like 2 thank you notes from the recruiter because the candidate didn't have my emails. I got it. The recruiter saying, hi, Osita, this candidate just forwarded this. I just went through the thank you and all that. For me, the guy didn't do well. The thank you. No, I mean, I'm not going to use it for anything, right? But again, it's good. It's good. Then another thing I want to point out is there is another way you can also identify the email of the hiring manager. For example, you didn't go through the recruiter. For example, if it's a company like, say IBM, for instance, okay, or Accenture. Some of these companies have a particular pattern, okay, through which they represent their emails. So once you Google it, just Google it, email pattern in IBM, I bet you will see that information. I've used that before. It could be Osita it could be first name dot last name at ibm.ca. So once you're able to get that tip, you already know the recruiter, right? What you simply need to do, just use the first name of the, you've already know the hiring manager, use the first name dot the last name at the company domain. I have used that before. I have given this tip to people, they use it and it works. It will go straight away. If it's a renowned company or big company, check out their email format and you will get it. I use that approach, okay?
Okay. I am going to be greedy here. I have one more question, and this question I think would most likely help a lot of people because we most likely have experienced this before. So I was in an interview a couple of weeks ago, and before I got there, I made the preparation. I had stories in my head. I kind of curated them into the STAR approach. But then something happened with inside the interview. I just lost control. Like you get some questions and it doesn't adapt, or it doesn't fall into whatever it is you prepared or the STAR approach you're using. How does one recover in a situation like that? Or another thing is, you're in an interview, you're feeling that this hiring manager is not feeling you. You know yourself that this interview is not going the way you planned or you want it to go. Is there a technique? Is there a way you can actually use to recover and get back on track? I know you talked about going to the board, buying some time, drawing out a process diagram or whatever diagram, or describing whatever. Is there a way you can actually recover when this happens?
Sorry, give me 1 second, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Our battery wants to die, Mr. Osita. Let's.
I'm telling you, just very funny, right? Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, perfect. We are good. All right. So yeah, what you said is Rotunda is very. I mean, it happens to most people really. It has happened to me before. You are talking and you feel that the hiring manager is not feeling you, right? Now, in terms of not feeling you, now most times that happens when you are not able to connect, or what you are saying is not resonating with the interviewer or the hiring manager. And where is important, if you're able to understand the problem the company is having, then you craft your stories around those areas. But if, for example, you've done all that and you are in the interview still, the guy is not feeling you and all that, what you can simply do, the whiteboard technique is powerful if you can do that, no doubt. But at the same time, if, for example, the whiteboard technique is not there and you feel the guy is, then you might probably need to ask a question. Even, for example, he has asked you a question, you finish, you talk, and you feel the guy is not feeling, you might simply ask him to be sure if you have been able to explain the question he asked properly. Ask, okay? If you ask him that question, he will probably, if there are more things that you want you to talk about, he's going to say that. That is the tactics, I think, because most times when they ask questions, you just want to answer, they ask you, want to answer, that kind of routine. But you can ask questions as well, just to be sure that you've never explained yourself. So if the person say, hey, there is more, then you now have an opportunity to be able to clarify. Because at times it could be that the way you've passed across the information is not resonating with him. It could be communication. It could be the guy is there, but his mind is somewhere else, So if you're able to ask him questions, that will draw him, to be present with you. If you go to the whiteboard as well, to be present with you because he's not looking at you, he want to see what you want to do. All those kind of things. So those are some tactics I think as well that we can use.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Do you have more questions?
Osita, my name is Joseph. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Actually, thank you very much for the presentation. My question is very, very simple. I went for an interview recently and I haven't made it through through the last stage of the interview, I was very confident I did well throughout the processes, and I was so surprised when I got their message that I was not being considered for the role. So I felt so bad. I felt very, very bad, and I was trying to, to know what actually went wrong. What actually did I do wrong? So I tried to, contact the HR person that has been engaging me, but I sent like 3 different messages. I could not get any response from them. I'm still feeling very bad. I just needed to know what exactly did I do wrong. So how best do you think I can handle this kind of situation?
Now, there could be multiple multiple scenarios here. It could be that you did very well. In your own estimation, you did very well. And again, even the hiring managers as well, in their own view as well, you did very well. It could just be that some other thing came up. They needed that position, but at some point they felt they want to just hold on for a while before they continue. It could be that they are reviewing to see if they truly need the position. I've seen situations in my company right now where some department will start some interview. And probably after some candidates have even gone first and second level, then the CFO would say, hey, I'm not going to approve additional personnel in your department. Ideally, some hiring managers should be able to get approval before seeking for interviews. Some don't do that. They'll just speak with HR, and from there they start setting up interviews. So it could be that there's a roadblock that they have met in the company internally that, hey, we're not going to employ anybody at this moment. That could be one of the reasons. It could be. Another one could just be that you think you've done well, but in their own estimation, you are not the candidate they are looking for. It's possible that, for example, just like some time before, I was talking about a candidate that came into the interview. In my company, I was part of the guy that interviewed the guy. He was talking about the salary for the position is $85,000 to $95,000 per annum. And the guy was talking about how he got an offer from Accenture for $130K, but he doesn't want to accept the offer. And for me, I felt, okay, it's possible because maybe the job involved travels. He doesn't want to travel. He has got a young family, want to stay close to his family, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the interview, my EVP said to me, this guy said, no for me. In my own eye, the guy did well. But my EVP was saying to me, no. And I was trying to convince him. He's saying, hey, Osita, no, we can't get this guy. How on earth will this guy get a job of $130,000 and is going to come here to accept $95,000? How on earth is it going to happen? Now, it could be that you said something in the interview that you don't even know that you've talked about. That becomes a red flag for the interviewers. It's possible. So there are scenarios, there are multiple scenarios that could play out. What you can do, reach out to the recruiter to get some feedback. If you're able to get the feedback, great. If you don't get, what I will advise you is to move on. If you don't get the feedback, you've tried to get the feedback and none is coming, just move on. That's what I'm going to advise you. There could be multiple scenarios. So for me, if you've tried to get feedback and the feedback is not coming, then there's no point waiting, right? Just move on. There are several other companies out there. That would be my advice to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Osita.
Yep.
My name is Oyeniyi.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I want to make a comment before I ask my question.
Right.
Just around this testing model that you just mentioned. Earlier this evening, I actually went for an event at Access Employment.
Okay.
I had a program on cybersecurity. And one of the guys that came to talk obviously came from Deloitte. He said exactly what you just mentioned now, around obviously his own interview process and how he got there. We got to the interview for the technical role, but during the interview, he got an avenue to stand up and obviously write and draw a number of network configuration on the board. And obviously the hiring manager was very impressed, and he did the same thing when he met with the partner. and the partner was extremely impressed, more or less like he took him back to school.
This is proprietary. Oh, this test model is proprietary to me. The guy have to pay. Oh. I don't know how the guy copied this model. This is my model that I'm still trying. I'm protecting this thing very, very. All right.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
he was just trying to let us know that that is actually a secret weapon, as in that we can always use. Just that obviously you have to be confident, obviously as much as possible, and be able to address any questions that might come up based on that. So the question I have right now is, have you ever been in an interview situation whereby maybe you got nervous, and how do you handle nervousness personally?
Okay, great. That's a very good question. Very, very good question. Now, another thing that I do, just like I said, in all the interview, when I was going for interviews, I go with a notepad and a pen. Personally, I can relieve pressure by writing. I don't know if it's going to work for any other person. If there is a bit of pressure, I will just start scribbling stuff. I can just start writing, my name is Osita. I am, I can just start scribbling stuff on the notepad. They don't know what I'm writing. They think, hey, this guy is picking some points. That's one strategy. Another strategy is you can even ask for water if you have the opportunity. You can ask for water. In fact, this was last one. The way I'm working right now that I talked about. I mean, they gave me a bottle of water. It was on the table. As we are talking, conversing, I will just sip the water and drop it again. As you are doing that, you are relieving nervousness a bit as well. Okay? But one major thing that I've seen about nervousness is lack of preparation. Lack of preparation, and also when there is no confidence. And that is why I would advise us to build a lot of confidence in our domain, in what you do. Or even if, for example, it's not exactly what you do before you go for that interview, prepare, practice, 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 so that you're able to have enough information, right? That will help you, because when you've got enough information, that helps your confidence level. And when your confidence level is there, nervousness will disappear. So I think that is how I want to answer this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, this is by way of addition to what Osita just said. It's the duty of the HR to help beat out the nervousness in the people they are interviewing. So except you're saying they've tried to calm you down and you remained nervous, I don't know what else they will do. Maybe what Osita just said will come into play.
Yeah, my brother, it's not easy. When you are on a hot seat, the HR might not even know that you're nervous. Now you wait there for hot seat. Now gonna say, man, no more. this thing not be small thing, no. The HR might just be there, and HR will not even be aware that you're nervous. And if HR is interviewing you, how would they remove the nervousness from you? Where you not be saying, no be your mama, no be your papa. How will you remove the nervousness? So it could be complicated. And that is why, for me, confidence is key in interviews. When that confidence is there, it helps you a lot, and it helps to remove that nervousness. And most time, confidence comes by preparation. When you are fully prepared, when you know this position, man, this is the job I'm looking for. Like the one I am on right now, I have to prepare because I know, man, this is the job. This is my job. When I look at the JD, everything I was doing back in Nigeria was what was there. I say, Momo, this one is my job. I had to prepare and bring in my A game into the boardroom. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
It's like Nelson. So I'm just going to raise some questions that some people sent to me privately.
Oh, okay.
So this one is from Peter. He says, how do you answer questions relating to how to manage a team? What exactly are hiring managers expecting you to say when the role you're applying to requires you to manage other people? So let me come again. He says, how do you answer questions relating to how to manage a team? What exactly are hiring managers expecting you to say when the role you're applying to requires you to manage other people?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Again, there are so many behavioral questions, right? If you go to YouTube, go to Google, there are so many out there. But for this tonight's session, I try to communicate based on the 3 areas that I know is very impactful. That is why I didn't even go into the behavioral question or other common questions during the interview. But when that question comes on managing a team, most time what hiring managers want to see is your leadership style. They want to know the kind of leader that you are. Are you autocratic? Are you a leader that would allow your team members to share their opinion? Are you democratic? Most time when they ask that question, that's what they're looking for. So obviously you must be able to answer the question, giving them the impression that you will manage your team by ensuring that everybody's voice is heard. Everybody in your team will be able to express themselves. That is basically what they're looking for talking about in a high level, right? So if you check Google or some other site, you get like how to structure those responses. But the meat, the major thing that they are looking for in that question is your leadership style.
Okay, I'm going to read another one that was sent to Floxy. So this person says, when you finish an interview, can the thank you message be sent to the HR person who invited you for the interview?
Yeah, just like I have answered, I think before, if you've got the email of the hiring manager or the interviewers, go straight and send the thank you to them. But if you don't have their email, then send to the HR that invited you, and please ask the HR person to help forward the thank you to the interviewers.
Okay. We have just about 7 minutes. I think we can answer 1 or 2 more questions. This one is asking about the testing model. It says you wrote something about using personal stories. Can you explain that?
Yeah, personal stories is very powerful. It's very powerful. Again, when you are talking to me, for instance, and you are telling me what you did before, it resonates, it sticks, than when you are coming into an interview and you are just talking. You understand? So when you are just talking, it looks as, that is what every other person does, You just talk. But when you personalize it, it becomes more impactful. So that is where I say practice. And that is where I also talk about crafting your personal stories. Like the one I used in the interview that I had the last time that I mentioned. The man was talking about cost. How do we reduce cost? SAP is expensive, maintenance is expensive, licenses is expensive, blah, 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 blah. I had to give him a story of what I did in my previous company, how I was able to sustain the SAP environment, how I was able to slash the cost by 30%. Those are stories. So personal stories has to do with experiences that you've got in your previous company. It's not time for you to probably start talking about personal story about your family or about your brother or your sister. No, it has to be related to the context, which is what is being discussed. So you need to understand the point, the issues, then craft a story. The story has to tie to what the problems the company is experiencing. That is personal experience. So when you're able to connect it, it's impactful because the hiring manager will see that you've done this before. And if you've done this before, you will also do it in this new company.
Okay, great. I think I can ask one more. I'm not so sure you've answered this, but someone asks that I have been told that being bold may seem like being too forward. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very, very good question. And that is why it's important to know your interviewers. It's very, very important to know your interviewers. If you know your interviewer, it's going to help you a lot so that you understand. For example, I've got masters, I've got some other leadership courses in some of the big business schools and all those kind of things. If I'm coming into an interview and I want to meet a hiring manager that probably had just BSc and looking at past experience, he hasn't done so much. I don't think I need to start talking about the fact that I'm an alumni of Harvard Business School, Scoring School of Business and all that. I'm not going to mention those things. That will intimidate the guy. I will not. Okay? So that is why your audience is very important. At that stage, I'm not even talking about the fact that I've got an MBA. I won't even mention that. I will simply talk about I'm a graduate of computer science, blah, 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 then talk about other things. So you need to understand your audience. When you understand your audience, then it's important to know how to craft the conversation. Then another thing as well is you need to smile. When you are communicating with confidence and you're smiling, it resonates, it connects. It will not be seen as being arrogant. But where the problem lies is when you're just seated. There's no smile on your face. You're just there talking. You know, you will become across as someone that is arrogant and all those kind of things. So that's why the body language matters a lot. In one of my leadership courses that I did in Scottish School of Business, they will tell you that in communication with people, 58% lies in body language. 38% lies in the voice, the tone, the way you say it. And 7% lies in the words. Imagine, the words you say, just 7%. 38%, the way you say it, the voice, the tone. Then 58% is the body language. Because I can simply tell you, you're stupid. Oh, you're very stupid. You're stupid. The word is there, but the body language matters. So it's powerful. The way you communicate, the gestures you make and all that will help to show that you're a confident person, but at the same time, you're not arrogant.
Okay, so because of time, it's almost 9:30, but also I'm going to squeeze two questions in one. Okay, so you can try and answer it. So someone says, please, what kind of questions will a technical account manager ask for a business analyst? And to end it, someone is also asking, what kind of questions can you ask the interviewers? Since it's mandatory, you have to ask something at the end. So let's start with the first one. What kind of questions will a technical account manager ask for a business analyst?
No, this question is a very good question. Very good question. But again, if you go into Google, for instance, you're going to get tons of questions, no doubt. All right? Different questions that can be asked to a business analyst. There are so many. But one thing that I have seen, especially in this environment, most times the hiring managers will ask you questions based on your resume. You've worked in like about 4 companies. Like my EVP. My EVP, most times his questions are from the resume. He picks up the resume and okay, he asks you, okay, you are with XYZ right now. Yeah, okay. Tell me, what are you doing? What are your job functions there? You know, you talk blah, 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 blah. Based on what you say, he will now pick a question and ask you. For example, I'm involved in facilitation, a recitation of requirements, stakeholder management, blah, blah, blah. But you can just pick up, it's okay, how do you manage stakeholders? From what you said, right? He will pick another one. How do you manage stakeholders? You now talk blah, 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 you know? So questions can come from anywhere. But that is why the most important thing is your resume, you need to master your resume. In terms of the things you say you did, you need to understand them because questions can come from those areas. Okay? Then in terms of general business analysis question, we can even do like a compilation of general questions that you can anticipate and send across to all the members, or get Nelson to upload it in our Google Drive so that you can go in there and check out maybe commonly asked questions or the questions that business analysts can expect. There are so many. I've got some in one of the documents. We can just get more, put everything together as a single document and upload it in the Google Drive. You can just go there, go through the questions and understand some of the questions. But the most important thing, understand your resume. Understand the business analysis concept. Understand what you've done in the past, because again, most of what you will be saying has to do with what you have done. That is most time what hiring managers want to hear. What you did, not really what we. What I. Very powerful. Don't forget that. What I did, I want to hear that if I'm interviewing. Hiring managers want to hear that. I'm employing you, not the team that you worked with before. So when you come in, what are you going to do? I want to hear that. So people make me say, what we, no, what I. Then that is on that. Then the second part, sorry, Nelson, help me with that. Nelson?
Okay, so I guess that's pretty much all.
Sorry, Nelson, the second part, please. I don't think
Oh,
I
yeah,
heard
someone is just asking that what category of questions do you advise job seekers to ask the interviewers? Since you ask questions and you don't want to ask questions that might work against you.
Yeah, there are so many questions. Just like I said about the other one as well. There are so many questions, right? But again, it depends on the interviewers. The question you're going to ask the first level people, like the HR person or recruiter that is interviewing you, is going to be different from the question you're going to ask the hiring manager. It's going to be different from the question you're going to ask the C-level guys. Okay, like when I was interviewing my EVP, the question I asked him was different. The CFO, which is the third level, the question I asked is different. I can't be asking the CFO technical questions. But the EVP, I was able to ask technical questions in terms of architecture of the SAP environment, for instance. I want to know. But for the CFO, I'll be talking about in terms of cost perspective. I'll be talking about in terms of how SAP is going to support the finance division. The guy was interested because the guy was already having problem with reporting. How they will get reports from SAP and all those kind of things. I know reporting is a major problem for CFOs. I use that, asking him questions that will resonate with him. And the guy was interested. So it's not just asking questions. You need to ask questions that will resonate based on your audience. Who are you interviewing with? Then that will help you to understand the kind of question you will ask.
And sorry, if I may add, I think the rule of thumb here is, well, questions, you can get the answers off of the website. You don't need to ask that. But other questions you may not be able to find anywhere, like what necessitated this vacancy that I'm being interviewed. You know, the company is looking for more hands, you know, that you may ask and you're entitled to the answer. You may also want to ask how soon will the interview process be over, you know. But again, it's not compulsory. If you have questions to ask, yeah, go ahead and ask. If you don't, it's not a sin.
Okay.
Yeah, you spoke very well. But I will tell you that, and I encourage you to have a question. It's not a sin, but remember, part of my strategy tonight in this presentation is how we can stand out. If you've got people doing different things, we need to do something differently. Doing something differently will set you apart from the crowd. So you must ask questions. It's very important. When you don't ask questions, it's not the best, right? Then another thing again that you mentioned, which I personally, I don't ask when the interview will be over or what is going to be the next step. I don't even ask personal questions. I advise people, ask questions pertaining to the job. When you do that, as a hiring manager, you are telling me that you are passionate, you are motivated, you are interested, you want to come in and hit the ground running. But when you start asking questions like when the thing will be over, when am I expecting the offer, what will be the salary? Those are personal questions. Will there be training? I'm asking questions that is personal, what I will gain. You know you want to gain something for sure, but don't even allow them to, don't even ask those kind of questions. That's my personal advice. Ask questions based on the issues the company is having. So that when they tell you, you don't stop there. You will now have to now reframe to say, hey, I understand. When I was with this company, they had the same problem. This was what I did. That would be an opportunity for you to nail it towards the end again. Personalizing it. When I was This was what I did. So the focus should be on the job, the value you want to add to the company. Okay? Don't go into asking them how much is the salary. No, those things will follow. They will happen. The most important thing, let the hiring manager like you. Once he likes you, all that thing go follow now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so see, guys, it is almost 9:40 and we are really 10 minutes past our time. Osita, the next question is going to be a yes or no. Yes or no. If you explain, I'll cut you myself. Yes or no. So this person is just saying, this is from Adiremi, this person is saying, is it polite to contact the recruiter or hiring manager after waiting for response since December 2019, although it was mentioned that they still have some candidates in January?
Yes, it's polite. December 2019, I mean, that's a long time. It's polite to in fact, after 2 weeks, if you don't get a response, it's polite to follow up.
Okay, all right. So that's about all we can take, guys. It's really a few minutes to 10. So I'm just going to wrap it up here with our normal procedure. If you have any questions, you can send it to the group. If you're among the group, you know Osita is always willing and able to answer your questions. But you can also collect these questions and I can forward it to Osita myself if that's what you feel you're more comfortable with. And we'll get you the response as needed. It's been a great session. Thank you, Osita, for your time. Thank you for impacting us with your knowledge. I'm sure that everyone or someone here has obviously gotten value from what you've said, and hopefully it takes us to the next level during our interview stages and closes the deal faster and quicker. Thank you again, Osita.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Quite appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, good night, guys. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Osita. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Osita, good night and thank you.
Yes, thank you, my brother. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ending the meeting now. Bye.